Welcome to the Retirement Trainer. Today we are thrilled to be joined by a true icon in financial education, Robert Kiyosaki. He's the best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book that has changed how millions think about wealth, investing, and financial freedom. Today we'll explore some of the most pressing issues of our time: inflation, artificial intelligence, national debt, and of course, financial literacy. Robert will share his unique insights and real-world advice to help us all better understand these challenges and what we can do about them. Let's dive in.
Robert, like I said, I really appreciate you joining the podcast today. I've been looking forward to this for the last couple of weeks. Honestly, your Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, that was very influential for me. I think I read it the first time, back in 98 or 99. And you emphasized in that book that the rich, they don't work for money. So right now, how do you see this philosophy really evolving in today's digital kind of gig economy where there's multiple streams of income that are more accessible? Has anything changed, or do you think your philosophies still kind of hold true?
Well, I think it's very brave of you to have me on your show because I flew these in Vietnam, U.S. Marine, and killed a lot of people. And but Marines are not known for their tact and civility. And I'm an academy graduate on top of it, so we're pretty nasty. But anyway, I wrote this book here, which is Who Stole My Pension, and this was I thought this was you. His name
No.
is Edward Siddell. So, and the reason I mention that is because most of my Marine pilot friends went
Mhm.
to fly for the airlines, and as you know, their pensions were stolen.
Yes.
And when I look at it today, and uh, I think the biggest problem today, Ed, is my generation. I'm just, 1974, I got out of the Marine Corps, but that was the year ERISA came in, and
Mhm.
Employee Retirement Security Act. Anytime it's security, they're lying to you. So my generation is the first
True.
one with a defined contribution pension plan, which is a 401k or IRA.
Mhm.
And my concern is right now that my generation, I'll be 78, and we're the first ones retiring with a DC at a 401k type plan. And what's killing them is inflation. They don't have enough to survive on. And it's a little bit late at 78 to be trying to stack a few more bucks away. So I think the biggest challenge facing my generation, at least as far as retirement, is inflation. And I thank, communist Biden and communist Kamala for that. I mean, the first I went to the academy. My background is oil. I studied oil, and I graduated in '69, then joined the Marine Corps in '69. But
Mhm.
anyway, what I know about oil is that when Biden came to office, he cut the Keystone Pipeline. That was his first act. I knew exactly what that son of a bitch was doing. He cut the pipeline. I was still under Trump, and I are good friends. I wrote two books with the guy. I wrote, he cut the pipeline. Under Trump, I was selling oil for $30 a barrel. The
Mhm.
next day, oil went to $130 a barrel. So I knew exactly what Biden and Kamala were doing. They want to create a wedge between the rich and the poor, middle class. So when inflation went through the roof, that was our first act. Second act was to take down Trump's wall. Man, those guys are criminals. And so what is jamming my generation now is because that's where my generation cannot afford to retire because they're the first generation with a 401k. Now, I retired years and years and years and years ago. I don't have any stocks or bonds or mutual funds or ETFs. I'm pure real estate. Trump and I are really good friends.
Mhm.
But I think the biggest challenge facing my generation or your thing, which I thought was interesting, that you're a retirement trainer, how does a guy at 78 recover if inflation is eating his retirement? That's my question.
You know what? And that's a great question because it becomes almost impossible depending on how much you've saved or haven't saved. I was just
Yeah.
having this conversation with some friends last night at dinner, and we were talking about taxes, on real estate, and we're seeing right now, we're in Columbus, Ohio, where we are seeing people that have worked their entire lives, they paid off their homes, they're on fixed incomes, like you said, defined contribution plans instead of defined benefit pension plans,
Right.
and they can't afford the increase in taxes, so they're going to be forcefully removed from their homes, and that's what's criminal. And so it goes back to that we've been hearing over the last couple of years. You will own nothing and like it. So you right. I mean, think about that. So you may have paid off the mortgage, but if you're having to continue to pay those property taxes, do you really own that property? Right? Because if you don't pay the taxes and, they can forcefully remove you from that property, do you actually, or have you actually ever owned it, or are you just renting it? Right. So, and we're seeing this more and more, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. And I love the fact that you're, on the alternative and investing side, right? You're not stocks and bonds and mutual funds and ETFs.
See,
It's
wait a minute. I don't think I'm alternative. I think I'm a capitalist. Trump and
capital.
I,
Yeah, there you go. Yes,
you
yes.
know
And
what I
I
mean?
agree, right? Be gold and silver. If you look at what happens to gold and silver this year, gold's up over 30%. Silver, depending on the day, is approaching 40%. And look at Bitcoin. So looking at some of the non-traditional and moving to where money is. And I think um, having Trump add to his platform, cryptos and Bitcoin, it's interesting to see where that's going to go after the election. Are we going to be moving away from the CBDC, central bank digital currency, where financial institutions have ultimate control, kind of like what we saw in China since 2006, or because the financial institutions are going to be decentralized? Do you think that financial institutions are going to be less relevant? What's your view on that?
I really don't know. I mean, it's like my goals are different because I had a rich dad. And my rich dad told me to stay away from anything the government could print. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, stock certificates. I have none of that stuff. So that's why when I was like 10 years old, I started on a different financial education path. And I was able to retire at a very young age, and my income keeps going up. So, today I'm not a Bitcoin whale, but I have 75 Bitcoin, and that's in the millions right now.
Yeah.
And so I got a late start. I was buying it at 6,000. So I'm pretty happy right now. And I own gold mines and I own silver mines. So I'm a capitalist. I own the mine. And my goal as a young man was to take a company public on Toronto Stock Exchange,
Hmm.
New York Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ. So I've taken three companies public on three different exchanges. So I do have stocks, but they're my stocks. I control the company. And that's why I'm happy to be talking to you because I feel for these guys who are my age today. And they've had bad, bad financial advice. Bad. And then this book here is another friend of mine, Jim Rickards. It's how AI is affecting the banking industry. And that's as he wrote me, this is a pre-copy. He says, Robert, something new to worry about. And everybody's excited about AI, but you can see I study, not bad
Yes.
from you know what I mean? And what he's saying here is everybody's excited about AI, but Records is saying AI is already bringing down the banking industry.
Well,
So it's an interesting time, interesting time. So that's why your advice has more relevance today than probably 10 years ago, because everything's changed in 10 years.
it's changing from day to day, with the advent of AI, the way it's escalating. And so what are your thoughts on AI? And those companies like, NVIDIA and Google and Microsoft that are
I don't play
heavily.
that game. I really don't like stocks. I own stocks. They're my stocks. I'm a selling, when you read a prospectus, I'm a selling shareholder, not a buying shareholder. So all coins have three sides: heads, tails,
Yeah.
and edge. I'm on the other side of the coin, the capitalist side. I'm not a consumer side. So that's why I wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's my board game back there to teach financial education. That's what I do. But I
Well,
practice what I teach, should I say.
well, financial literacy has always kind of been part of your mission. And do you think the lack of financial education being taught and the lack of financial literacy has really caused a lot of the situation that we're in right now as far as debt? I mean, going from the largest creditor nation in history to the largest debtor nation in history?
You're on it. You're on it, on it, on it. We're the biggest debtor in history. Our annual payment on our debt is $1 trillion. We don't collect that much in taxes. We're bankrupt. And nobody says that, you know. So that's why I thought it was interesting that I thought you were this guy here, Ed Siddell. And he and I talk about pensions and all that, but I'm glad you're doing what you're doing because I think if you can sound the alarm to boomers, you know, that this is not your daddy's retirement. This is a very different world today. And
It is.
yeah, and the Fed, as you know, is the Marxist organization. You know, I read this book here is about the Fed. It's a creature from Jekyll Island. You can see I
Yes.
study, well, Marine I study, and it's Marxist. You know,
Oh, it's
anytime,
completely Marxist. Yes.
yeah,
Actually, we were talking about that last night. There was, a friend of mine, his son, who's 25 years old, just got done reading it as well. So, I think it's starting to
this
transcend the
this
younger
book here.
generation. Yeah. Creature from
Yeah.
Jekyll. Yep.
Hey, you guys tuning in, read this book. It'll open your eyes, you know. Anyway, keep going.
No, no, and it is. It's scary when you read books like that, and it really is talking about financial literacy. These are the things that aren't being taught in school, whether it's in primary, secondary education, or at the collegiate level. It's the this Keynesian economic theory that we all know doesn't work because that's now the situation why we're in the
Uh,
situation that we're in right now.
yeah. In 1965, I was 18 years old, and I got nominations to Naval Academy and Merchant Marine Academy. I took Merchant Marine Academy, we're highest paid graduates in the world in 65. But my economics teacher had me read this book here. And he was a West Point graduate. And it says, instead of studying that stupid economics they teach you in school, you should study the economists. So Marx is one of the biggest economists of all, so does Mises and all those characters. So I had a military education because we had to be prepared to know thy enemy and kill him. And I loved the U.S. Marine Corps, man. I was a punky surfer kid, you know, and boy, they take no bullshit. You know, you just get your job done.
So, what made you want to join on one of the academies? Was that always a goal?
No, it was I really wanted to sail the world. So when I was a kid, I watched that movie Mutiny on the Bounty or something like that. And it
Hmm.
was, it was about how these guys sailed to Tahiti. And so when I was 16 years old, I went to see my guidance counselor. I'm flunking out of school. I flunked out of high school. I'm an
Oh,
F
really?
student. Yeah, I can't write, but my book is #1 in the world for 25 years. You know what I mean? So anyway, you know how schools are. Whatever they tell you you can't do, you're probably good at it.
That's right. That's right.
I'm talking to my guidance counselor. She says, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to sail to Tahiti. I want to go to Quinn's bar and get laid." she goes, she goes, "You don't have very high aspirations." I said, "Well, sure, but you know what I mean? I'm an 18-year-old, I'm a 16-year-old kid. That's what I want to do."
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
she was great. She was great. She says, "This is the school that'll get you there." So what school is that? She said, "Kings Point." So my congressman, Daniel K. Inouye, gave me Annapolis. And because I had to reapply to him, I said, no, I don't want to go to Annapolis. I want to go to Kings Point and sail to Quinn's bar and chase women and get drunk. And so Senator Inouye was a Medal of Honor winner, you know, from Hawaii. the 442nd in World War II. And he says, "Why do you want to go to Tahiti?" I said, "Drink beer and chase women." He goes, but
Uh,
it gets you through school, right? You know what I mean?
yeah, yep.
Whatever it
Honestly, you
gets.
gotta love it.
Yeah. And so the same thing when people talk to me about retirement, I said, you better find something you're interested in.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, I love real estate. I played Monopoly, 4 greenhouses, 1031 tax deferred exchanges. And so Trump and I are really, really good friends. I wrote 2 books together. This is my shirt with Trump, it's Midas Touch. And
Oh, I
I'm
love it.
I'm selling these for $50, and $50 goes to Trump's campaign. And he's a very good man. His sons and I are really good friends. They're just, as compared to Hunter Biden, like father, like son, as they say. I hope the guy's not Democrats, but anyway,
No,
I just
no.
Ohio's where Vance is from too, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Marines,
So,
Semper Fi, yeah.
honestly, I was pretty excited. I know originally people were probably disappointed, in the pick. I don't know why, but I had met JD a while ago, but the first time I actually saw him once he was in office was after the train crash in northern Ohio, East Palestine.
Right,
And he
right,
was
right, right,
the first representative of the U.S. government of any kind there because
right.
Buttigieg never showed. And so his not just empathy, but his compassion to the people and bringing to light the actual problems that were happening. I was like, okay, this guy really understands what's going on. And obviously to see him from his upbringing, his history to literally pulling himself up from his bootstraps to where he is today. It's just that's the American dream. That's what we all aspire to, and we hope our kids do too. So I think that was a great pick. I really do.
His book Hillbilly Elegy was
Yes.
a fabulous book, and then I read it because he's a Marine also. You can.
Right.
We all need that, especially boys. We need that core discipline. Do you know? And if you don't have that, you wind up like Hunter Biden with porno and drugs and all this stuff. And Donald Trump's 2 sons, Don Jr. and Eric, are good friends of mine. We hunt, we camp all over the world together. They're good kids. They're really good kids. So like father, like son. So when I watched old Hunter Biden, and then Kamala, where did she find this guy Waltz from? The Salvation Army store or something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Robert, that's what do they say? What's the saying? To find the true character of a man, just look at his children, right? Isn't it? Or something along those lines? I'm paraphrasing
I
it.
don't know.
That's not
Yeah, yeah,
exactly
yeah.
correct, but
We're not child psychiatrists, but
you're right. I mean, what a true statement that is.
yeah,
I think after so let me ask you this. After the election, what Trump's energy policies, the policies that he had enacted before that have since changed, right? And in what I think he's going to enact going forward, what do you think the impact that's going to have, not just on the economy, but the leadership in resolving maybe some of the debt? Do you think that that's a possibility?
no. I'm afraid that's too far gone. I hate to be a pessimist, but as you know, if our annual payment on our debt is $1 trillion, this is the question I ask people. If I
Mhm.
paid $1 a second, okay, $1 a second, how long would it take me to pay off $1 trillion? 31,688 years.
Wow. Is that what it is? 31,000. Holy cow.
31,688 years. But that was started by, Tricky Dick Nixon, August 15th, 1971.
When we got off the gold standard.
Yes, they didn't call him Tricky Dick for nothing.
Yeah, and people don't understand that the US dollar is, I mean, it's a fiat currency.
Yeah,
Backed by the full faith and credit that the US dollar is going to remain the reserve currency. And, if we don't have a strong energy policy here in the US, and I mean, we could be the largest energy producer in the world. but
Yes,
we
we are.
stop that.
Yes, we can be. Yep.
And if we're not, we're going to lose that reserve currency threshold in a heartbeat. And then BRICS. I mean, it started off with 5 and 6 and 10. I think now there's an additional 30 or 40 nations
Correct.
that want to get involved in that.
And they
Um,
hate us. They hate us.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And so that, I mean, with all the debt that we have, right? I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure if we're not going to surpass it, we're going to be pretty close to $36 trillion in national debt by the time of the on the day of the
Trillion.
election, right? I mean, it's going to be
Yep.
pretty doggone close.
Yep.
Um, and if we don't start to get a strong energy policy, our standard of living with all the debt, it's going to be dramatically changed. And those that aren't prepared, right? Those
Correct.
that do not have precious metals and commodities and those
Correct.
things that can't be controlled, their way of life is going to change, not just drastically, but dramatically, I think.
Correct. There's another book out that people should read. It's this When Money Destroys Nations, and it's about Zimbabwe. And it's written by a friend of mine, Philip Haslam. And it's a very good read. It's eye-opening, especially for, the people you talk to and all this. It talks about what happens when Zimbabwe started to print money to pay its bills. And it's a
Yeah.
very easy read. But I was in Zimbabwe. I'm a hunter, and I was on this person's properties, Afrikaners, white people, when they call them the war vets pulled in, the black guys with the AK-47s.
Hmm.
I thought I'm back in Vietnam again, but this time I'm carrying a double rifle, for elephant gun. And these black guys pull up with AK-47s, and they grab this little white woman and her husband, and they basically put the barrels of their AKs in their mouth and tell them, get off this property. And I'm sitting there watching it, from my truck. And then they basically took the land. They took everything. The
Oh,
black
really?
guys did. Yeah, I'm sitting there going, I thought I was in a movie or something. I mean, it was so surreal. And this little lady comes up to me. She's Afrikaans. She's like kind of little granny. She goes, burn this place down, burn it down, burn it down. So yeah, there was my professional hunter myself with our torches. We burned down their farmhouses. She says, leave nothing for those bastards. So I'm sitting there going, it was like a movie. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm walking through this. So I would suggest people get this book here because I was just in Kenya about 6 months ago. And this woman from Kenya stood up and she says, look, you guys, we're doing the same thing Zimbabwe did. Ed, we're doing the same thing Zimbabwe did. That's what
Well,
this book is. Very
all right. I,
powerful.
I actually wrote down the title of that book. I'm actually going to read it this weekend. And
Yeah.
I actually have it's in the other office a $1 trillion Zimbabwe note.
Yes.
Right? I know you can buy them on Amazon too, but
Right.
it's
Right.
it's representative of the fact of what Ben Franklin I think was if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah. And
Um, you
people
know,
don't know, we learn from history.
yeah, well, that's a financial literacy, right? I mean, not only Zimbabwe, but we saw it in Argentina, most recently Venezuela, and it just continues to, unfortunately reinvent itself.
But
So,
if you read this book, you'll recognize we're doing the same thing.
yeah.
It's only a matter of time now.
All
So
right.
the good news is I like Bitcoin. So I tell people my age, take some of your money, buy one Bitcoin, 60,000 bucks, whatever it is, because Bitcoin goes up in value whether the dollar comes down.
So
So
where do
you
you
might
think Bitcoin's going to go? Just out of curiosity, in your thoughts, where
I'm counting on about $1 million. So
really?
I have 73, and it was a goofy thing. I bought one just to see if I could buy a house for one Bitcoin. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I bought it for 6,000, and now it's up about 65,000. If it hits 120,000, I can buy a house. It's just a game. Money just
Yep,
is.
yep.
I learned it playing Monopoly, four greenhouses, red hotels.
All right. So you're a hunter, right? Which I love. I am too. So when you go on these trips, so when you were in Africa, what were you hunting for?
I hate to say this, but I'm an elephant hunter.
Are you really?
Yeah, I shot 16 so far.
Oh, have you really?
I stand right in front of them and let them charge.
So you all right? So what? All right, I got to ask. So what size caliber?
Look
What
at
were
this
you?
thing here, I had I was designed to be a Marine helicopter gunship pilot because we're not sane.
That's awesome.
It
That's
was
awesome.
really the saddest thing was when your friends don't come back, where we're carrier based.
Yeah.
And you sit there and your friend's aircraft doesn't come back and they're gone. So I went to visit them at the Vietnam Wall, to say goodbye to them there. But it was character building, that war. I don't recommend it, but we're going into it right now with Israel. I think we're in it. World War III is coming. Hate
So
to say that.
do you think there's going to be a slowdown or somewhat of a stay, if you will, if Trump's elected, just because he's not going to stand for it? Or do you think the momentum has gotten to the point where there is no stopping it?
I should have had a picture sent to you. I'm sitting next to Trump with his patch on his ear, and we're in Milwaukee for the RNC, Republican National
Mhm.
Committee, and we're sitting there, and he was watching himself be shot.
Wow.
It was surreal, and he goes, and I didn't want to say anything, but John Kennedy said, President Kennedy, he says, if they're going to get you, they're going to get you. So it was prophetic. Kennedy was a great man. So was Martin Luther King. We had some
Mhm.
great leaders during the 60s. Then we had Reagan, now Trump. Of course, there's Hillary and Kamala.
Well, Dan Bongino said early on before, the first event in Pennsylvania, in Butler, Pennsylvania, that, they're going to try and take him out. And then after, Butler, he said, yeah, they're going to do it again.
Yep,
And I think they just said it this morning too, that, Iran has already said that whether he's elected or not, they're going to keep coming after him. So that
that's
just tells
correct.
you the threat that they believe that he is, because he's not playing by the rules that they want him to.
Right.
He's got his values that he's going to continue to adhere to.
He's a courageous man. Courageous man.
So
He's put
how long have you known Trump for?
about 25 years now. We started working together on right after Art of the Deal. He's
Oh, really?
yeah. So we wrote this book here, Midas Touch, and they're
Mm.
for sale at Rich Dad for $50. The money goes to Trump's election, and I love the guy. I mean, I have tremendous respect for him. He's funny as hell. That's his problem. He's funny. People don't think he's funny.
Well, you know what? Here's the one thing: what you love him or hate him, okay? Man, you've got to appreciate the fact that he is what he is. There's nothing that's being hidden. It's just, you don't have to guess what he's thinking, because he's going to tell you, right? I
uh,
mean,
I was sitting in a meeting with him, and Chris Christie walked in. And Chris Christie is bigger in real life than he is on. He's pretty big in pictures and TV, but he's even bigger in real life. And Donald looks up and he goes, "Hey, Chris, lost a few pounds, huh?" The whole room cracks up. I felt sorry for Chris. I mean,
well, I think these interviews that he's doing, it's well, on both sides, right? The interviews that Kamala is or is not doing is definitely benefiting us, and the interviews that Trump is doing, is benefiting us. So I understand. I guess the interview that he did with Joe Rogan is getting ready to drop next week. So I think that's going to be the icing on the cake.
yeah,
I really think that. And I did want to
yeah,
tell you that I was telling you about dinner last night with a very dear friend of mine, and his wife and his son, and his fiance, and me and my wife. And so I told him that, we were talking today. And so Grant pulls up his phone and there was you took a picture with Grant at the RNC this year.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, you know what? You should have sent that to me so I could yeah, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I should have showed that to you. But yeah. So and he said that the RNC was like for a 25-year-old, he said it was unbelievably impactful.
Yeah. Other thing that last night I was having dinner also with a Dr. Chris Martenson. He's a PhD in some kind of thing,
Hmm.
but he's a guy when he took all the sounds from Butler. You know, he says there was two guns.
Yes.
I went, holy mackerel! So I was having dinner with him last night. He says there was two guns and one Secret Service agent missed, not unaccounted for. And so I was on stage with Bobby Kennedy Jr. when he switched sides. So Bobby Kennedy and I were talking, and he has a Secret Service. Well, those guys, I didn't trust them either. I mean, they're just standing right behind of us, going, who are these guys? So like we used to often, as for a Marine second lieutenant, the bullet sometimes came from the back because if you didn't trust your leader, you took him out.
Hmm.
Thank God I survived, but your troops have to respect you, and trust you. So the
Yeah,
Marine
they
Corps was
really
Marine
do.
Corps best training for me personally, because I was a punky surfer kid.
Well, I think that Dr. Mortensen, who you had dinner with last night, I was listening. I think I went to his website early on and was listening to the audio tapes, and he had the
Yes, yes,
breakdown so that
yeah,
you can actually hear the frequencies of the
yes,
different calibers.
yeah,
And is it the same gentleman? I
yeah.
think.
His name is M.A.R. Martinson,
Martinson,
Chris.
yeah, yep, that's him. Yep, absolutely. And it was fascinating. You're like, okay, it was completely. Yeah, it was. Y- you could tell the difference from an untrained ear like
Yeah,
mine. I'm a shooter. I love to hunt, but still to be able to tell that big of a difference in the audio tapes, it was night and day.
yeah,
I mean, you couldn't even argue it. So.
yeah.
So, let me ask you this. If you were to write Rich Dad, Poor Dad today, what would you change anything in the book? Do you think the philosophies would still hold true? What would you add to it, especially with this AI kind of gig economy?
Well, I wouldn't change much on it because, like I said, I flunked out of high school twice because I can't write. And if you saw me in high school back in '65, and said someday this guy would be a writer, you'd go, no, there's no way. There's no way. But it was just a story of my rich dad. Like I said, was my best friend's father, and he never went to school, so he had to learn money by working at his father's business. So when I was a kid, and Rich Dad's son and I were best friends, he had us working in the business. So we learned money without the fluff of the Fed and all that other stuff, and school
Hmm.
teachers. And we learned a lot. We just learned a lot and how to deal with people. On Saturdays, he'd have his meeting with his teams, and I watched my rich dad run his teams. Whereas my poor dad was 6'4" for Japanese, that's fairly tall, but he was head of the teachers union. And at my house in Hawaii, my father would have his teachers union friends at our house. I got the creeps. I just got the creeps watching them. It was nothing about education. All they wanted was power, more time off, and more money. The teachers. So today, what's the most powerful union in America is the NEA, National Extortion Education Association. And then if you read this book here, the Communist Manifesto, it says workers of the world unite. So when I graduated from Kings Point, the Merchant Marine Academy, I refused to join the union. I'm not against unions, but personally, I would have joined one.
Hmm.
So just because I read this book here, and my father was such a hardcore, poor dad was such a hardcore union guy. So it was really a contrast in two different philosophies, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
One,
Yep.
rich dad, a capitalist, poor dad, Marxist. I tell you, man, and that's the one thing I learned at Kings Point is that acta non verba. Watch what a person does, not what they say. So
Amen
when
to that.
Biden came to office, his first act was to cut the Keystone Pipeline, and oil went from 30 to 130. I knew exactly what he was going to do. He's going to divide the middle class, and then we're on the verge of revolution. That's what Ray Dalio was calling for. He says, we're probably on the verge of civil war right now. And it's getting more and more, the more the gap gets wider, the more chance of civil unrest we have. So this book here was a very, very powerful book for me to read and understand. I was teaching at Arizona State University. I should never have done it, but I was teaching students, gifted kids, about capitalism. About my oil guys in there, about my rancher guys in there. I only invest in things I can't print, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So I had my Wagyu cattle guys there and all this. And the 39 professors hung me out to dry. They called me a quack, this, brainwashing people. And I said, I should never come to this campus. Our schools today are toxic, and it's indoctrination into Marxism.
I agree. I agree. Did you see, I think was it yesterday? It was this week, earlier this week. So this is Friday. Someone made a $25 million donation to Clemson University to teach capitalism. It was to open a school of capitalism. Did you see that?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so I was like, well, you know what? Because the pendulum, right? I mean, it has swung so far one way, it's actually starting to come back the other way, which is good. But I agree, it really is indoctrination, at all levels, starting in elementary school all the way through. So, in this philosophy of, everyone's got to go to college and go in debt. I mean, it's almost $2 trillion in student loan debt is
Yeah.
is ridiculous.
And guess who pushed that?
Yeah.
Barack Hussein Obama.
Yep.
He's one of the nastiest SOBs I've ever. He's from Hawaii too. My friends know him fairly well. So,
Hmm.
they went to school with him at Punahou School in Hawaii. Rich kid, but he pretends to be a poor kid.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Oh, come on. How do you tell a politician's lying when his lips are moving? Watch what they do, not what they say.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. So let me just ask one last question, if you don't mind. I know we're short on time, so I appreciate your indulgence here.
Thank you.
All right. So you've already recommended that everyone should have at least one Bitcoin. How about gold and silver, as far as they're part of their portfolio? So look, I'm a big believer. I don't believe in the paper stuff. I like the physical, tangible gold and silver, precious metals, not where someone else is having it, but where I actually custody it. So how much do you think people should have as part of their overall net worth of gold and silver?
Well, if what the Marines say, if you've done it, it's not a lie, and it's not bragging. I have tons. I have tons of gold and silver. I own the mines. So I'm pretty. I drank the Kool-Aid on gold in Vietnam because I was in Vietnam when Tricky Dick took the dollar off the gold standard. So I'll leave you with this here. I hold this up like this, said, here's a Kennedy $50. Here's a $10 bill. And I say, who wants a $10 bill? Everybody goes for this, which is worth more. This.
That absolutely. Yep.
This was the last year of silver coins, 64.
64.
And then Gresham's law took over. When fake money enters the system, good money
Hmm.
goes into hiding. So I'd rather have real money than fake money. But 99% of people go for this, not
Well,
this.
because they've been indoctrinated. That's what they've been taught. They don't
Yes.
understand, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to financial literacy.
Yes.
You know,
That's why Rich Dad Poor Dad, there was three rules. Rich don't work for money. Your house is not an asset, and savers are losers. But you got to know what you're saving. You know what
that's
I mean?
right.
So I save gold, silver, and I like Bitcoin today. The more I study, like Michael Saylor, he's hardcore guy. I listen to him all the time. And then Paul Tudor Jones came out in favor of Bitcoin. So the guys are considered authorities in that world I listen to. So one Bitcoin's about 60, 70,000 bucks, and just hang on tight.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, Robert, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Hopefully after the first of the year, we can get you back on after the election, and we can kind of see all the good things that are coming down the pike. So I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. As Marines say, Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to The Retirement Trainer with your host, Ed Siddell. For our latest retirement news and financial tips, please visit egsi.financial.com or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We look forward to having you back for our next episode, where we will continue to explore the world of retirement. Until then, please remember to click, like, and subscribe. See you next episode.